Presentation of Science Trek on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Salmon are amazing. Some swim up to 900 miles just to return to their original spawning sites. Want to find out more about salmon? We're here to answer your questions. Stay tuned. Science Trek is next. Hi, I'm Joan Cartan Hansen, and welcome to Science Trek, and welcome to the MK Nature Center. Today we're answering your questions about salmon, but before we do, let's learn a little bit more.
Most fish live in either freshwater or saltwater, but salmon are anadromous fish. They spend part of their life in each. These salmon begin as small eggs in cold freshwater mountain rivers and streams of Idaho. They settle into clean gravel where cold water can flow over them, providing the eggs with oxygen. Within a few months, the eggs begin to develop into tiny fish and emerge from the gravel. These tiny fish are called fry. They dine on microscopic water animals called zooplankton. The little fish will stay in their birth streams for a year or two until they grow to be almost as long as your hand. Biologists call these smolts. They're kind of the teenagers of the salmon world. Their bodies are changing and they're ready to try new things, but they're not yet adults. As spring rolls around, these smolts get the urge to travel. They head into the flow of the river current and begin a long journey to the ocean, riding the rush of melted mountain snow that creates spring runoff water. Before dams were built on the Columbia and Snake Rivers, this long journey took only about a week. Now they must pass through 8 large dams and the slow pools of water created by those dams. These days, the journey can take several months. Along the way, their bodies change to adapt from fresh water to salt water. This process is called smoltification. Those that survive spend the next few years feeding in the ocean. By the time they have the urge to return to Idaho, they've developed into huge adult salmon. Once again, they negotiate the 8 dams and then smell, that's right, smell their way home back to the stream where they were born, hundreds of miles from the ocean. It's a pretty amazing feat. Now the whole process starts over. The adult female salmon begins to build a nest in the gravel at the bottom of the stream. She fans and shovels the gravel with her tail to form a depression for her eggs. These nests are called redds. A male hovers nearby playing court to the female, waiting for her to spawn so he can fertilize the eggs. Soon the adults will die, but the life cycle isn't finished. Their rotting bodies are important because they provide food for predators and scavengers like bears and ravens. So why is there so much concern about Idaho's wild salmon? Well, it's because they're disappearing. At one time, thousands upon thousands of Chinook and sockeye salmon returned to Idaho every year. Now there are years when few sockeye salmon make it back to Idaho to spawn. The main problem is getting those teenagers, or smolts, to the sea. Since that journey takes so much longer now, most of Idaho's salmon smolts never make it through the dams to the ocean. And of course this means there are fewer adults to come back home to spawn. And if this trend continues, someday our Salmon River may just be the name for a ghost fish that can no longer be found in Idaho's waters.
And joining me now to answer your questions about salmon are 2 guests. Jeff Heindel is the Fish Hatchery Supervisor for the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, and Adair Evans. She's the wildlife educator also with the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's go to your questions.
My name is Naomi. I go to Owyhee Elementary, and my question is, how many types of salmon are there?
Naomi, in Idaho we have actually 2 types of Pacific salmon, Chinook salmon and sockeye salmon. Many people think that steelhead is a type of salmon. It's technically a trout. All told, there are 5 species of Pacific salmon on the eastern side of the Pacific. There are Chinook salmon, sockeye salmon, coho salmon, pink salmon, and chum salmon. And then I mentioned the steelhead, which is really an ocean-going rainbow trout.
Alexander would like to know, why do salmon swim up the river to their birthplace?
Well, Alexander, the reason they go back to their birthplace is because they remember it. Salmon will hatch out of their nest, they stay around in that stream for a while, and when it comes time for them to go to the ocean, they go backwards and they're smelling the water the entire way. Water smells differently. I know that seems kind of strange to us, but water smells different based upon the minerals in the water itself and the things that grow there. So salmon get a whiff of that smell of their stream where they were born, and they remember it. So when it comes time for them to come back to their birthplace, they follow that smell all the way back to their birthplace so they know where to lay their eggs.
But do they know why salmon go back to where they were born?
We honestly don't really know why they go back. It's just an internal drive that they have to go back to that particular spot. There are some researchers actually doing some studies on how salmon really find their way. We know they smell, but exactly what are they smelling? And there's some researchers that are studying Pacific lamprey. They look like a big eel. And what they found out is Pacific lamprey are just like salmon. They are anadromous. They start their life in freshwater, go to the ocean, and come back. And what they're finding out is Pacific lamprey stay in the river for a very long time, sometimes up to 5 years as these little teeny larvae. And when they're in the larvae stage, they're hidden down in the mud, and they actually release pheromones. They release these scents. And when the lamprey come back, they're actually driven to the pheromone that the little lamprey larvae are releasing. So maybe there's something to do with that, but honestly, we don't really know why they come back to that exact same spot and how they know to find their way other than they use their sense of smell.
Hi, my name is Lauren, and I go to Cynthia Mann Elementary School. My question is, why are salmon pink?
Lauren, salmon are pink generally because they undergo, during their maturation phase, they undergo a coloration change, and in the males it's usually a bit more accentuated than in the females, than the mommy fish, but the males will compete for the females. It helps to have this coloration, also a different body shape and a more pronounced kype, a hooked jaw. Now, fish also have a pink flesh. Generally, fish flesh will be colored it will be different colors depending on the diets they eat. Generally, the more natural diets, insect life or invertebrates, they contain a lot of pigments or carotenoids, and that can color the meat of the fish or the flesh of the fish and give it a pinkish or a red color.
Hi, my name is Jackson and I go to Owyhee Harbor Elementary, and my question is, what do salmon eat?
Well, that's a great question, Jackson. They actually eat different things depending upon how old they are. Once they hatch out of their egg, they already have a built-in food supply. They have a yolk on their belly, and they eat that food for a while. And then once that goes away, when they're in the Idaho streams, they eat something called zooplankton, which is little itty-bitty tiny organisms that we really can't see without a microscope sometimes. Once they go to the ocean, they kind of switch from eating zooplankton and an insect now and then to eating fish, at least for Chinook salmon. If we talk about something like a sockeye salmon, from the time they hatch out and their yolk sac is used up, they eat the zooplankton and the other things that are in the ocean, and they're not big fish eaters when they get to the ocean.
Hello, I'm Josie. I go to Cynthia Mann Elementary School. My question is, how far can a salmon swim in 1 hour?
Boy, a tough question. How far can a salmon swim in an hour? The answer is a long distance. Some biologists spend a good portion of their life studying how far fish can swim in a certain period of time. I'll say that generally speaking, salmon that go to the ocean and come back will swim thousands and thousands of miles. For a salmon to leave Idaho, they have about a 600 to 900 mile journey to get to the Pacific Ocean, and there they will live a period of 1 to 3 or 4 years swimming thousands of miles, and then they have to migrate back that 900 miles to get back to Idaho. So the answer would be several miles in a day.
Jameson asks, how fast does a salmon's heart pump?
Oh, that's a great question, Jameson. How fast a fish's heart will pump will depend on a lot of things. It will depend on whether or not that fish is excited, if it's being chased by a predator, or if it's in a resting phase, or Water temperature will have a large role in that as well. Generally for salmon, the warmer the water, the faster the heart will beat. When in cooler water, in colder water conditions, their heart actually slows down. It doesn't have to beat as fast to move blood around the body.
Did you know that the two comma-shaped holes on either side of a salmon's head are its noses? These olfactory receptors absorb molecules from water, and that tells the fish what's going on in its environment.
Hi, my name is Brayden from Cynthia Mann Elementary. My question is, what if all the types of salmon went extinct?
Well, Brayden, I would really hate to have salmon go extinct for so many reasons. It would be pretty sad for me. Just personally, I really like salmon, and so not to be able to see them swimming in our rivers, and it would really sadden me for that. But not only would it be sad just not to see them and have them, it would be very, very detrimental. It would be a horrible thing ecologically. Salmon are so important to the health of Idaho. When they go to the ocean, they just eat and eat and eat and eat, and they fill their bodies up with such important nutrients. When they come back to Idaho and they die, all those nutrients, it's like a giant fertilizer that helps Idaho's streams. They bring back all the nutrients that our plants really need to survive, and their dead bodies feed so many other animals. Salmon are what we call a keystone species, and what that means is if you look at an arch, the very tippy-top stone in that arch helps to support everything else, and salmon are the tippy-top stone. They're that keystone that holds everything together. So if salmon did go extinct, it wouldn't only be a sad thing because I couldn't catch them and eat them. It would be a sad thing for everything, the plants and the animals that also call Idaho home.
Parker would like to know, how old can a salmon live?
Parker, salmon can generally live to be upwards of 7 or 8 years old. Now, that's not generally the case in Idaho. Most salmon in Idaho, and we're talking about sockeye salmon or Chinook salmon, they'll live to be between 3 and 5 years old. But if we go out to the coast, some of the colder climates where growth is slower in freshwater, some of those fish can be 6, 7, 8 years old.
Hi, my name's Ethan, and I'm from Cynthia Mann Elementary School, and my question is, how much do salmon eat compared to their weight?
How much do salmon eat compared to their weight? Salmon eat a fair amount. In the wild, they'll consume a large quantity of food, but generally a lot of that food, they're little bugs and little invertebrates, so they have a lot of water, but they'll take in a lot of food organisms to try and gain weight. In a hatchery, we know a bit more. They'll generally eat between 3 and 6% of their body weight per day. That's what a salmon or a steelhead would need in a hatchery environment to maintain their base metabolism, but also have enough food in their belly to give them a little bit of growth.
Will asks, does the Salmon River in Idaho have a lot of salmon?
Well, the Salmon River was named the Salmon River because of the salmon. So you betcha they do have a lot of salmon that come back to the Salmon River. And really way back, if we go back and look at historical records, when we talk about the Salmon River where it first starts in Idaho by Stanley, some of those early explorers talked about being able to walk across the river on the backs of salmon. There were so many salmon in the river, that's all you saw. So you can definitely say that the Salmon River has a lot of salmon, since that's where it got its name.
Hello, my name is Claire. I go to Cynthia Mann Elementary School, and my question is, how many salmon are hatched each year?
Great question, Claire. There are thousands of adults that come back and spawn naturally in the wild every year, and generally every female salmon that lays her eggs will lay between 3,000 and 6,000 eggs. Over the course of a year with multiple species, we should have millions of juvenile wild fish, baby wild fish. Now in our hatchery system, the state of Idaho routinely routinely spawn thousands of adults and produce approximately 5 million steelhead babies a year and almost 10 million Chinook babies a year. So in any given year, our hatcheries in the state of Idaho will produce between 15 and 20 million baby salmon that will spend about a year and a half in Idaho before they go to the ocean.
Hi, my name is Sarah and I go to Cynthia Mann Elementary. My question is salmon the biggest population of fish?
Well, there are lots and lots of different kinds of fish in the world. When we look at fish that have little teeny bones in them, we call those bony fish. There's about 20,000 different kinds of bony fish. And really, salmon's just a little portion of those bony fish. So when we look at all the fish, there really aren't very many of them.
Hi, my name is Nikki, and I go to Dalton Elementary School in Dalton Gardens, Idaho. My question is, how long does it take to spawn?
How long does it take to spawn? In a hatchery, that process is fairly quickly. When the mommy fish are ready to lay their eggs, we'll take the eggs, fertilize them with milt from a male, and add a little bit of water to activate the cells. Fertilization happens immediately, and those eggs get placed into incubators. But in the wild, it's certainly a slower process. It's a longer process that involves courtship, males and females courting one another. It involves the female laying, preparing her redd or digging a nest. After the spawning event, that female will cover up one of those egg pockets and then start making another egg pocket. So spawning can last well over a day with the female preparing the redd, actually spawning, and then covering up the redd prior to her dying.
Hi, we're here at the Sawtooth Fish Hatchery with the manager, Brent Schneider. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
What are they doing back there?
We're emptying the trap of Chinook and other fish that were trapped overnight. We do this every day this time of year. And when we bring a fish up, we'll identify what species it is, and then if it's a Chinook, we'll identify if it's a hatchery origin or a natural origin, and then we'll handle that fish according to what we've discovered that way. So this is a slightly older male Chinook salmon. This one is a hatchery origin fish as well. Again, the missing adipose fin. This fish is a 4-year-old fish, or spent 2 years in the ocean. So you can see how that extra year gave it this much more growth. You can tell it's a male. It has the typical kype of a male during spawning condition. And it's very slender right here, very thin. A female would be full of eggs. Ad clip, male, 74, no pit. So far this year we've trapped just about 2,700 Chinook salmon. Earlier this season we trapped about 4,000 steelhead adults, and we may trap a few hundred sockeye salmon this year. So that's adult fish, and we're raising around 2 million juveniles right now on station, 2 million Chinook and about 200,000 sockeye. So this fish, no CWT, no pit, it's going to go into the center pond, which is our male broodstock pond. So they're sorting through our Chinook broodstock. So there's an assortment of hatchery origin Chinook in there, as well as a few natural origin Chinook. And they're going through and checking for the ripeness of the fish, and also for gender checks. Then they're sorting the males into one pond, leaving the females in the pond they're in right now, and then they're putting any ripe fish in a live box for future artificial spawning. And then what we'll do is we'll separate them, as we spoke about, and then we'll go through them twice a week and look for ripe fish, and then we'll do the artificial spawning. And we'll collect the eggs, fertilize them, incubate them here, and raise the fish for about 18 months. And then we'll release them into the Salmon River, and they'll migrate out to the ocean as smolts.
And then what?
And then the process will begin again 1 to 3 years later when they return as jack salmon or as adult salmon.
And how about you personally? Why did you want to do this for a living?
I grew up on the south shore of Lake Erie, and I spent most of my time fishing, so I've always been interested in fish. And I was traveling through Idaho and stopped here actually, and I found work, and my first day off I went for a hike on Elk Creek, and I was walking along admiring the clear water, which was unusual for me, and all of a sudden a 4-foot Chinook took off and I was hooked.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you visiting us.
Okay, let's go back to your questions.
Hello, my name is Henry. I go to Cynthia Mann Elementary School, and my question is, what type of salmon is the smallest?
The smallest salmon that we have in Idaho is the sockeye salmon, and they don't get very big. The ones that we see coming back to Idaho, by the time they get back here, they're only about 3 to 4 pounds.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I go to Dalton in Dalton Gardens, Idaho. And my question is, what is the biggest salmon ever caught?
What is the biggest salmon ever caught? That would be actually a Chinook salmon, or a lot of people call them king salmon. King salmon in Alaska can be almost 5 feet long and weigh over 100 pounds. So in terms of the species, Chinook are by far the largest, the smallest being either the pinks or chums and the sockeye.
Garrett asks, what is a good bait to catch salmon?
Ooh, good bait.
A
You
good
take
bait.
that.
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of fishing you like to do. In my family, we do a lot of fly fishing. So we have in our little box all kinds of little flies, and if you've ever seen one, it's basically a hook with a bunch of ribbon and feathers on it that make it look like an insect or something else. And so we would use that to try and catch a salmon. If you go to the ocean, might be a little bit of a different story. You might want to get yourself an actual fish. Stick a little herring or a little sardine or something on a big old hook and fling that out there and see how you do with that. So that's what I would use. What do you think, Jeff?
Boy, you know, I think I'd have to use an example that my wife always tells me, and the only way we can catch fish when I'm out with my wife is to use a worm. I think that's the old reliable method. Fish certainly eat bugs, vertebrates, and or invertebrates. I'm sorry. So I think if given an opportunity, most fish will always take a worm if they have an opportunity, in addition to Adair's flies.
Hi, my name is Ashlyn, and I go to Dalton Elementary in Dalton Gardens, Idaho. My question is, why do salmon just leave their eggs and not stay at their place where they spawned?
Well, Ashlyn, I think I get what you're talking about. Salmon tend to just kind of lay their eggs, and they don't just go away, they actually die, which almost seems kind of shocking to us. We kind of tend to like Mom and Dad to stick around and give us snacks and take care of us. But you know what? If you think about it, in a way, salmon really are taking care of their young. They make a nice nest, they cover them up with gravel, and they give them the best possible home that they can while they're developing and growing. Now, it might seem sad that Mom and Dad kind of die, but when salmon die, they're actually helping to feed their young. Now, I know that sounds really strange, but when they die, they release all of these nutrients and all of their important minerals and everything that they brought back from the ocean into the water. And those nutrients help to make the zooplankton and all of the little insects in that river system. So in a way, Mom and Dad are kind of helping out the young, even though it seems like they're not sticking around.
Hi, my name is Layla, and I go to Owyhee Harbor Elementary School. And my question is, do fish breathe underwater?
Fish actually, they don't breathe as humans do. They actually respire is a term that we use. Fish respire underwater by their hearts pump blood through a series of gill structures in their head. That blood contains carbon dioxide. It's a waste product from the fish's body. Carbon dioxide, as it crosses the gill, leaves. Oxygen enters into the bloodstream, and the heart pumps it to various structures in the fish's body.
Olivia would like to know, why do salmon have a different taste from other fish?
Well, Olivia, the way a fish tastes is actually dependent upon what they eat. So if you think about salmon, when they go to the ocean, they're actually eating some different foods than you might actually find in a rainbow trout in Idaho. And lots of the trout that you catch in Idaho started their life off in a hatchery. So they're being fed little pellets that have all kinds of nutrients and food in them that we give them. So when you get a nice, fresh, wild-caught salmon in the grocery store, you might notice they're a pink color, and that comes from eating all the shrimp and other invertebrates that they find there, and it actually gives them a different flavor than you would a rainbow trout that you might catch in the Boise River or somewhere else.
Before we run out of time, I want to ask why you decided to do this for a living. Why did you decide to study salmon as your job?
Well, you know, I just love nature. I was one of those kids that I would be outside digging in the dirt and throwing rocks, and I just love being out in nature. And they're just an amazing fish, aren't they? I mean, you see this fish that begins its life living in fresh water, and then all of a sudden it goes living in a completely different environment. I find it fascinating. And science is one of those things that you do for a living where you never stop learning. And I think that's really important. There's always new things that are discovered and new things to learn.
And if someone is interested in doing this for a living, what should they study in school?
Well, the most important thing, if you're going to get into this career, you have to complete high school. That's imperative. Generally, most people in the fisheries community, fish biologists, will get into a biology type program in college and secondary education. And my recommendation for students nowadays is to specialize in fish. If you enjoy fish, pursue that in school. There are very specialized fisheries degrees. An individual can get a degree, either a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. Several students want to go on and get their PhD. So my recommendation would be to specialize. If you know you like fish, follow that, follow your heart and pursue that. There's several great schools in the Pacific Northwest that teach people about fish.
I'm sorry, but we've run out of time. Thank you, Jeff and Adair. I appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Joan. I had a great time. It was fun.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And our thanks to the folks here at the MK Nature Center for hosting us. You can learn lots more about salmon and lots of other scientific topics on the Science Trek website. We'll answer more questions about salmon on Science Trek, the web show. And if you want to submit a question for Science Trek, it's easy, and you and your class can win prizes. You can send it as an email or as a video question. Record it on your webcam or cell phone. And if you're an educator, we'll even lend you a camera. Our last prize winner was Ethan from Mrs. Hunt's class at Cynthia Mann Elementary in Boise. So to find out all about salmon and how to send in your questions and how to win, go to the Science Trek website. And each week, check out my blog for the latest science news for kids. You'll find it all at idahoptv.org/Science Trek. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Science Trek.
Presentation of Science Trek on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
If you want to learn more about this topic or watch our videos, check out the Science Trek website at idahoptv.org/Science Trek.